We're getting a few people joining one by one. But I'll just kick off if that's all right. My name's Jennifer McAlevey, and I'm the chair of the Scottish TUC's organising group, which is the group in which trade unions collectively meet together in Scotland to try and share good practice and ideas and help develop skills and tools. And I'm also on the General Council from Glasgow Trades Council, so I'm an activist in the movement. It's fantastic to have you here and join us. Thanks so much, everybody who's joining us. Can everybody hear okay? I think there's a few folk with sound issues. I'll let some folk address that. Great. Tonight's purpose of tonight's meeting is to allow us, and we've done this before, to, as a Scottish trade union movement, to give people a bit of space to hear a bit about the Organising for Power online course that's taken place in May this year. It's an annual event usually, and to really get down to the content of it, to have the expertise of Jane McAlevey in the room to talk about how she's used this as a channel to promote, you know, the organising strategy and the skills and tools that we need to deliver that. Sorry, I'm just distracted by the chat there. So we've got Jane in the room, which is just fantastic, actually, fabulous. We've got Ethan Arrow in the room, who's part of the Rosa Luxemburg infrastructure that delivers on making that machine happen and encouraging the maximum participation, and also making sure that all those facilitators across, not just people participate in the course, but the facilitators who facilitate that participate in the course. So so he's going to bring his expertise here today to talk about the practicalities of that and how we can help you do that. It's a team-based training event, so you don't get to come as an individual. You've got to have your union family, your union team, you know, your campaign team, your reps on the ground that you're trying to train up. You bring them with you, and a facilitator registers, and then you take part collectively in the course. So we're going to talk about the practicalities of that, and we're also going to do a wee bit of reflection with three good folk who've given up their time in Scotland to talk a bit about the kind of strategic role that that training has played in developing their response on the ground and activating members and engaging members, and more importantly, in fighting and winning and getting pounds and improvements in the life, pounds in the pockets, and improvements in the working lives of trade union members all over Scotland. So I just want to give you that wee outline of what we're going to do tonight. We'll be finished by 7, and as a way of introducing you to Jane's work and well, I'm going to say we have a special relationship with Jane in the Scottish trade union movement. We found her work in book form 2016. In 2017, we persuaded her to come to Glasgow and to do a book launch, which was a fabulous, exciting, exhilarating event. And to train some of us, I think there was about 15 in the room with Jane for a day the next day. And boy, did it leave its mark. And that relationship continued not only in the conversations we had with Jane about our practice, but also in developing that again. And Jane came back in 2018 and spoke to Glasgow May Day along with Ethel Berkeley, and she spoke to a May Day that was led by the Glasgow Equal Pay campaign. And that was particularly exciting for me as an organiser, because we had tried to use some of the tools and techniques that had been taught from Jane in the Glasgow Equal Pay organising campaign. Jane was there inspiring that group of workers and talking about using the strike as a tool. That we don't use the strike whenever we can, but we make sure that we are ready to use the strike as a tool, and we get fit for purpose for that, and that's the way that we show our strength as a movement. And I remember her being cheered off the May Day stage to calls of strike by the women in the Glasgow Equal Pay campaign, and that always resonated with me whenever I think about her work and when I think about that campaign and how they organised and how they won. And I know that her work deeply influenced both the organisers and inspired the workers. So it's since then there are lots of people across the movement who have taken part in your training, because we've managed to make it accessible all over the world. So we have managed to participate like thousands and thousands and thousands of workers in the courses that have happened year on year in from 2019 onwards, or was it? Yeah, it was 2019 onwards, wasn't it? We went online. I think I've done every single one except one. So it's definitely not a one-off. It's about refreshing your skills, and also just having that fabulous experience of being involved in a truly global trade union organising experience, which it genuinely is. So welcome, Jane. Thank you for coming. It's wonderful to have you here. You're going to kick off and give us a bit of an introduction to what the course is all about and what it offers our movement.
Great. That's looking at my watch to be mindful of it. That is so such a nice introduction. I love doing work with the Scottish team and meeting Jen. 2018, 2017, I lost track of which that year was, but it was just a hoot, both because the passion and the commitment is there in a really serious way, I think, at the Scottish TUC in general, and certainly in Glasgow, where Jen has been doing this work. So I think from the very first time I showed up there was just this handful of a lot of young, strong-minded, but brand new at the work, young people who were really into building and rebuilding a better and a new trade union movement. And what a breath of fresh air, because we need that everywhere, like all over the entire world. So I'm just going to say a few minutes about the program itself and how it's structured. And I think we'll get into the dialogue with some of the folks from Scotland. And I'm happy to answer any question or comment or anything like that. So, I think over the years, part of what I'm realizing that's different about the online training program is, one, foundationally, it's a program that's meant for rank and file workers and for sort of full-time staff also who work for unions. But to have a program designed from the very beginning so that ordinary members of our unions could participate in them in a serious way, and not have to get, not always have to be on the approval list of who inside of whatever given union somewhere in the world might have control of that approval list. Like, that was a big development realization of like how many more people really wanted to learn to organize, like, than we're actually being given access to. So just the hunger is there in the world to like, what is this thing and how do we win more? Because we're getting crushed out there. So one is, it's really highly participatory, and you can't, and at first I was the most skeptical. If Ethan remembers our first meeting, I mean, I was the most skeptical that I could take sort of 30 years of curriculum development work I had done as an organizer who believes in training a lot in the field. I mean, people get the best training, I think, in a campaign, but shy of a campaign, how do you do really good, pedagogically speaking, really good training work that's high participation, high engagement, when you're all sitting on the end of a phone line or a Zoom line or a something, right? I mean, the world just flipped upside down from when I was a young organizer at the age of 22, working and living at a famous place in the US called the Highlander Research and Education Center, which was probably the most famous adult training and education center. And it has its origins as the adult education center for the Congress of Industrial Organizations, for the CIO. In the 1930s and 40s, at the height of the CIO, the best of the US trade union movement. It's often later known only to be this very famous center that had a huge influence on the civil rights movement, but it has a history before that. And it's interesting, in the US, that it's like safer to talk about the civil rights movement than it is to like talk about the role of the Highlander Center in the left-led kind of trade union movement. So to go from small rooms, rocking chairs, 30 people in a room, very Paulo Freirean, sort of in its tradition for those who know Freire's work, to I'm going to climb on with a headset and talk to 5,000 people tonight about organizing, and they're going to go into breakout rooms and then come back and talk about it. It's like pretty mind-blowing elevation of the scale of the work. So 2 is it's extraordinary how we can scale the work up. So it's who's coming, it's how many are coming. It's like quality and it's quantity both. And I think that that's been a profound experience. I think the first time we hit like 5,000 on a single screen in the A session for one of the courses at the height of the pandemic, it was like, wow, there's 5,000 people here. We could start getting serious numbers up around the world to scale up around more effective organizing, and more effective power analysis and more effective strategy if we did a lot more of this. So we just started doing a lot more of it, and we have a course coming up, which Ethan will talk about. So, and in the course itself, I think, we essentially take the core concepts that I've put into all of my books, which is 4 of them now, each one an accident, honestly. And we've taken the concepts in them, which I'm always the first to say are not my concepts. They're not mine. I was taught by brilliant trade union leaders. I had amazing mentors who do come directly from the Congress of Industrial Organizations. So like I can now say I'm 2nd generation from Leon Davis, who's 1 generation from. Like we can do name games, like who was linked to which famous CIO organizer in the 1930s, just based on who trained me and who trained that person. So it's pretty wild. So we take the core concepts of organizing, and then add the methodology that goes with it. So here's a concept, high participation. We need a lot of it to beat them because they have way more technical, tactical kind of resources than we do. They just have way more. They have the military, they have the media, they own it all. Like you all know what the basic power imbalance is. It's pretty intense. And we do know that the one thing we have going up against the people destroying the planet, destroying our quality of life, the one thing we have is our numbers, but they're only numbers theoretically. There's nothing real about them unless we can manifest something like 90% of the working class to actually fight to win. And that's what the program is about. It's about fighting and fighting to win and teaching people that at a very high scaled up level, and going from core concepts like that we have to listen more than we talk, for example, that we have to spend most days prioritizing workers who go the other direction when they see us coming down the hall. Those are the very workers we have to go find and have a conversation with. We have to know how to have an effective conversation once we catch up to them. So this is concepts and methods, and we put it all together in one 6-week course. We learn from every course. We have learned from every course. We just did a training academy to train 50 more global trainers in the program, and we learned from the global training program. Like we just keep learning how to scale it up and make it better and better. And every class is better and excites the hell out of me. So I think that's the basic concepts on the training program. And and it's about the most fun thing I do. Like whenever it's in training mode, I feel like it's like my happy 6 weeks whenever I'm stopping and pausing in a campaign and actually running a training program. It's super fun. So I think unless there's any other specific questions, we should go to commentary, but I'm letting you drive, Jen. So commentary from some folks in Scotland who have taken the program. And then any other questions people have for me, and then we just go to Q&A. Jen's in charge. I always like when Jen's in charge.
So we're definitely going to go to your questions, but we thought it might be useful just to get some reflections. because I think what people don't realise is how practical these training experiences are. Like, because sometimes training in our movement, you know, when we think about ideas and concepts, it can seem quite vague. But actually, these are really about equipping people with the tools to do the job where they are, where they're organising, with the workers that they are organising alongside. So we thought it would be really useful to have that discussion about that with some of the people who have seen that happen over the last few years in their own organisations in Scotland. So we've got three folk that have kindly agreed to chat with us. We're going to move over to Gilly Young, if that's okay, Gilly, from PCS Union. And again, when I look at that picture, I see some of the new recruits to PCS at the time. Some of them have moved elsewhere, some of them are still there, that were in the room and took part in that 2017 and definitely 2018. But that was just in Scotland. I know that across PCS, you know, that you've been on a journey as well, that you could link to the availability of Jane's writing, but also her participative activities, including the international courses.
Thanks, Jennifer. And as you can probably hear, I'm not Scottish, but I'm very near the border, so I'm not too far away from Scotland. And I am married to a Scotsman, so I class myself as Scottish. So thanks very much for that introduction. You'll be pleased to hear that we've just appointed today to the head of to our national organiser posts, two people who've come through the training, Jenny Gunn and Martin Cook. So that's really pleasing for us, and we've just interviewed them this morning, and they'll be taking forward a lot of this work that we're talking about today. So really timely contribution from us. So just really wanted to talk about how we've used the training and who we've trained in PCS. So from a training point of view, we've tried to target the training at staff at all levels of our organisation. So not just our organising staff, we've tried to involve staff from our bargaining side and those who have direct contact with members, so those who work in our contact centres that deal with members. So we make sure that organising is running all the way through our organisation. And of course, our lay reps we've had involved. We've identified workplace leaders and what we've tried to do is to make sure that once those people go through the training, that they're supported back in their branch structures, because a lot of them are young, enthusiastic people a lot of them are from underrepresented groups, but sometimes they meet with barriers from gatekeepers when they go back to their own branch structures. So we've tried to make sure that we've had mentors in place who've been able to make sure that they're able to take this work forward. We've had mixed groups of experience for project work, so we've tried to mix in the staff in with the lay reps so that they can get a good idea of the project work that's involved, and we've brought in leaders to take those groups of members and staff who've been through the programme themselves, who can assist and encourage them through that. What we've also tried to do is to make sure that the Organising for Power training runs through our own learning and training programmes. So, for instance, our advocate programme, where we've involved members from across the spectrum to do small tasks like talking to their colleagues, mapping their workplaces, mobilising members to do things, getting members to vote in ballots, to sign petitions, getting them to basically do things and get more involved. And what that's done, that advocate programme has brought forward, again, workplace leaders from a lot of underrepresented groups who've then gone on to get more involved in PCS activity and, you know, taken forward that work. On talking to members, we've really tried to use a structured organising conversations about moving the conversations away from service and language to a much more organising language. And again, that's part of most of our training courses. We've used it to have difficult conversations where we've wanted members to do things, you know, whether it be join the union, to get involved, to recruit their colleagues, or to explain about issues of concerns. So recently we've introduced a levy for members as part of the strike. So where members all pay into a strike levy, which means we can take targeted action in areas where we've got leverage. That's needed a structured conversation with some members about why the levy is important and why it's important in winning our campaign. So we've used the structured organising conversation activities in our training to be able to deliver that. On the ballots, we've done structure tests. So we recently did a consultative survey before we've gone into a ballot. We're in the middle of our statutory ballot at the moment. It started last Monday. So we're using all the tools like peer-to-peer, call hub, and again, linking those into the structured conversations, because members are much more likely to do things if they're asked to do it by people who they can associate with, who are having that conversation. So people on the ground who are working alongside these members. We've done a lot of data cleansing to try and identify active members. So using our digital tools, we've identified those people who vote early in ballots, those who vote, those who keep their contact details up to date, the ones who attend meetings, sign petitions, help on picket lines. So we can try and identify, you know, those are the active members, those are the people who we need to be really tapping into to get more work done. And on planning, we've tried to make sure we've got a proper timeline there about what we need to do, who needs to do it, when do they need to do it by, and having targets. So again, in this ballot, we've currently encouraged all of our branches to have targets about how many members have told us that they've voted. Because it's a statutory ballot, it's postal, so we can't rely on electronic voting. So we've really got to rely on having that on the ground organising work being done. The last area really I wanted to touch on is the big bargaining area, which we're exploring currently. It's a big part of our organising strategy this year, which is going to our national conference in May. We're aiming to pilot the approach as we have had some resistance so far. As you can imagine, I think when we try to bring in something new, we do get a bit of resistance from people who say, well, that's the way we've always done things. Well, just because that's the way we've always done things doesn't mean that that's the right way to do it. So we've been trying to build that by linking our bargaining and organising work in all of our campaigning and organising work so far, and involving members at the most early stages of negotiations. So I think that's really the areas that we concentrated on in PCS. But as I say, we're constantly building extra things in as we get people through the training. We're currently advertising for the training with our reps and our staff. So we're hoping to have a big contingent again on the Organising for Power training.
Wow, Julie, what an amazing contribution you made there, and so exciting. You know, I think I've seen Jenny Gunn's name on every facilitator, that WhatsApp facilitator group, Ethan. Jenny Gunn's been there every single time. And so it is interesting, isn't it, the way that unions have not only, you know, we've maybe had a group of organisers that got interested 2016-17 and tried to understand the concepts and the tools, and you actually see that the way that now Julie's explaining how the infrastructure of the union is being shaped and designed and being able to make it fit for purpose so that it fits alongside the work that we need to do on the ground. And I think that a lot of unions are spending some time doing that. I know that the union that I work for, Unison, has been doing also a lot of work on training organisers, and it aligns completely with the strategies that we've been taught by Jane and by others. And it's absolutely about making sure that we have that kind of strategic approach. And whereas before we maybe shied away from numbers, now we embrace the concept of measurement and numbers very much so, and how that's absolutely crucial. So thank you, Julie, for really giving us such a kind of open and detailed examination of that and how you've done that in PCS. I think it's incredibly helpful for folk who think, you know, where am I on that journey? And actually, where is my union on that journey? Not just where am I in my workplace or my sector, but where is my union in that journey? You know, is it fit for purpose in terms of aligning to these kind of strategic organising techniques? But ultimately, it does come down to raising expectations, doesn't it? It really, which was the title of your first book, Jane, but I don't know how many times I go back to that term to say our job as union organisers is to help create a machine that raises workers' expectations, that wins are possible, and that we can achieve these things together. So lastly, I'm going to bring in Mike Williamson, who also has been a real champion in Scotland of, you know, not only the ideas and concepts, but what that really means on the ground for your unions and university and colleges all over Scotland, Mike, in terms of, you know, doing better, getting better results. So it'll be great to hear from you about what that's meant for you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Hopefully, hopefully you can hear me, because sometimes my internet doesn't work very well with Zoom, but great. Yeah, I first came across Jane when in a previous job, my boss, who is now actually Deputy General Secretary of the STUC, handed me her first book, Raising Expectations and Raising Hell, which was, you know, really I mean, a life-changing moment, honestly, for me when I read that book, and it, you know, made a huge difference to the way in which I see organising, and what, you know, that was before I worked in the trade union movement. The course is, I think I've been on every iteration of the course, including the pilot, you know, and tutored on everyone after the pilot as a facilitator. And to me, I think there's a couple of things that it's really worth emphasizing. And the first is that this course does not require any previous experience. In fact, I would say it's probably an advantage if you don't walk into the course with a preconception that has come from the way that the British trade union movement has operated in the past, which hasn't always been an organising approach. And certainly the members that we've put on the course that have struggled with it have been the ones who have this concept of the union as like a club for workers, rather than a structure which is seeking to organise every single worker. So I think that's be the first. And then the second thing that I really value about the course is the emphasis on methods and discipline, where you know, the course outlines 5 or 6 different concepts or techniques which it's really important to apply, and then the discipline to try and stick to those methods in as many different situations as possible. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about how we've put it into practice within the University and College Union in Scotland. Obviously, the vast majority of our organising has been around national disputes. So, you know, there's a limit to UK-wide disputes, I suppose. I mean, where there's a limit to the sort of control that we have over that. However, in local disputes is where there's been a huge influence. And the two that I'd like to talk about are the Glasgow International College and the University of the Highlands and Islands, the central bit of UHI, which is called Executive Office, where we've made really strong use of 3 of the concepts from the course: leadership identification, which is where you're picking the people who are already the leaders in the workplace, and bringing them into the fold so that they start using their influence, which they already have, over other workers in the workplace. Mapping and charting, which I think people will be familiar with the overall concept, but you know, it's the idea that we figure out where all the workers are, not just our members, and track against them the actions that they've taken, how pro-union they are, how, you know, whether they've taken part in various structure tests. And then also alongside those structure tests is just the concept of supermajority participation. So in the University of Highlands and Islands, we using this approach, we've built our membership very substantially. I think our membership is up. I think we're up over 75% over the last year, which is, you know, really strong. And we've also successfully negotiated recognition for the Executive Office, which is great. And at Glasgow International College, we've taken the exact same approach, working from a list of all staff, going through each individual one. We've asked each person which way they would vote if it came to a statutory recognition ballot, and we have well over 70% in favour of the union. And we're negotiating recognition there with a private sector employer, which has been very hostile to unionisation in the past. So you know, two areas where this has worked really well. I also want to give a quick shout out to Live and Rent Tenants Union, which because I think it's worth mentioning that although this is a trade union organization, that lots of the methods apply to community-based unions as well, not just workplace-based unions. And so Live and Rent is a tenants union, and I guess it's worth saying that lots of the stuff about structure-based organising is the thing that has been a big change for Live and Rent. We've existed for about 10 years, and one of our slogans is block by block, street by street. So really taking that structure-based organising approach to heart, and also we use the 6-step structured organising conversations every day when we're talking to people on this, even just people just passing by a stall in the street, we're able to get people into a 6-step structured organising conversation and recruit them to the union. And you might have seen the news today that the Scottish government has actually just published a housing bill which includes for the first time a national system of rent controls, which has only come about because of the organising using many of Jane's methods over a 10-year period. So highly successful. So I'll leave it there. Thanks very much.
Fantastic, Mike. I'm so glad you mentioned the ideas and the concepts being able to be used beyond the trade union movement. And in fact, somebody in the chat just mentioned that, but certainly probably tenants is the best example of that, because we do have tenants, collective groups of tenants participating. You see the different names up from all over the world. Actually, they've been the most significant attendees alongside workers. But I love the way you reflect on the fact that even though, when would be the first time you had a learning experience about a 6-step structured organising conversation? I tell you what, you and me both, every time I'm having that discussion, I learn more. And there's nothing to be ashamed in that. In fact, that is, in my view, is that's an incredibly healthy approach to have as an organiser. Because, see when you're a carpenter and they've taught you how to, make a bedpost, you don't learn it once and you walk away. You hone your skills, you reflect on them, you watch other people, you reflect on them again, you go back and you try new ones, and you match them up against the old ones, and you try it the way somebody else does it. That's how we need to think about our skills as organisers. This is not something, you learn and then that's the way you do it. This is something you hone and you reflect on, and you think about, and you talk to colleagues about. It's dynamic experience. So thanks for bringing that, and all your other points. Exciting. So I think we should maybe go for questions, and then we'll go to Ethan, if that's all right, because it would be nice to get some questions and contributions, folks. The people in the room I know who have things to say about this. For some of you, it might be the first time you're sitting on here thinking, should I do this? We've got a gang of care worker reps, union reps in care from the private sector and from the charitable sector, who are actually going to do our first ever joint union training together, and to work on our campaign around sectoral bargaining, because we're being offered sectoral bargaining, but we've got to build power under that. It's meaningless without power. So we're actually doing a joint union training, McAlevey training, where we're going to have Unite and Unison and GMB all together training together, who all work in the care sector and the kind of worst part of it. And I know I can see with one person who fits that bill who's on this call tonight. So whether this is your first time in the room or you're joining us with a bit of experience, or you maybe have some questions to pose, feel free to lift your hand up, or pop your name and pop hello in the chat, and Rachel will bring you up to get you involved. So anybody got any questions or points that they would like to make? Anything at all? Any reflections on the courses that you've been involved in, or?
Jen, I can see Paul Flynn has got his hand up there.
Lovely, thanks. Paul?
Hello, I'm hoping you can hear me. Yes?
I can hear you great.
apologies, I'm on my phone. Thankfully, my kids are in the other room for the moment, so we shouldn't be disturbed as well. Yeah, I would just want to say that sort of I've worked now for the PDA for 2 years, and I did the Organising for Power training, I think maybe 16, 18 months ago. And it really sort of opened my eyes to how little I knew about organising, but it also really, really helped with just the practical elements of how you get people to move and how you bring people on board with you and get them to understand their power and how they can get involved and make a difference. And sort of, I've got to come through, dinner's ready, never mind. Yeah.
All right.
Amazing. Really, really helpful, really opened my eyes. And as our union, the PDA, we've got Colette Bradford, who's our head of organising, and she is massively sort of on board with the Organising for Power and the McAlevey way of doing things. And it's really, really great to see the difference that we're making for members and in pharmacy. Now we're getting some forward rolls. So yeah, just really, really good. I've encouraged my colleague Maurice Hickey, who works in our policy department, to get on here as well, because I found so much value in the Organising for Power course, and yeah, hope to have the opportunity to do it again. So yeah.
Great. I just have to say, listening to the reflections from the other Scottish unions was a beautiful thing. And each of you raised some overlapping pieces of the work that you're doing, that you're calling out and using, like the structured organizing conversation, and remembering we just get better at it. Like we just get better and better and better, and how essential it is. And then the leader identification, mapping and charting and structure tests. Like I can say that these were not common bar talk words when I first showed up in Scotland a bunch of years ago, carrying my card of tricks that I was taught as a young baby organizer myself by my mentors. But I love a bunch of things. And one thing I wanted to ask was, I think Julie said, like, one thing that's really interesting. Is it okay, Jen, if I make this comment? 2 comments, 1 comment. Like, one thing that's really interesting to me now with AI and the damning technology that's hitting us, frankly, already, and it's going to hit us a hell of a lot harder than I think we even appreciate at this point, is that actually going back to the very simple tools of workplace big wall charting and doing it old school, not with the computers that are taking every name and single everything we're doing and putting it into everything and blah, blah, blah. And I love saying one thing about all the methods that I was taught and that I teach and that are in these 4 books and in this course is they are really high impact and low budget. Like, you can really organize for not a lot of money at all by going back to the future, because we got to go back to the future right now, because they're going to kick our ass when it comes to computers and outdoing us, and how fast can we get a strike vote prepared. And so I'm an even bigger fan than I was. Like, the longer I live, the more attached I am to hand-based, color-coded, department by department, unit by unit, like whatever it is, like the best way to do the wall charting in whatever facility we're in, or if we're building a tenant union. So interesting that came up too. I've been in 2 giant tenant unions meetings in the last 3.5 weeks as a speaker, like a quiet private consultant to people who are building a national tenant union in the US. So I'm really encouraged by that they understood. They were like, we had no idea where to go to do negotiations to get housing, to bargain a lease. So we went to your book. So could you come talk to us? Like, these are people just picking up the book randomly, and realizing, oh, this is actually interesting. Like, there's a way to do bargaining that's better than others. Let's try that one. So, I love the pilot of trying to go out swinging on the big open bargaining, because that is where you peel the way. To me, it's the ultimate layer of trust. It's like, if position holders don't trust members being in the negotiations room, I don't know what the members do in there. Because if my leadership didn't want me in the room, I'd be pretty upset about it, right? Like, whether or not they wanted me talking or whatever the structure was. but it's the ultimate trust builder. And it's what results in massive participation, because suddenly people realize in the ranks, they really matter, their voice really matters, and they're going to really have a seat at the table, and they're going to get engaged in a way that they never have before. It's just my life experience. So I think it's, anyway, it's that's not like we're signing up for every program right now, because we have a whole nother one we're developing on just the negotiations, but we tuck it in everywhere because it's fundamental. But really great, just really great to hear those reflections. Warms my heart. I think we can win. I really do. I think we can beat these bastards. I think we've shown it. I think the little bit of evidence that we have just from organizing for power shows how much more we can win when we take a different approach to the work that really puts workers at the center of the work. That's what it's ultimately all about. So just pleasure being here. Pleasure to be around the Scots.
And it's also great to see the way that is not just an event that happens, like people do it, try it, and we've done it, but actually you can see that building and improving. And often with the workers that we see who are using these tools and methods across the world, you see not just a win and a victory, that there's a victory lap for 15, 16 times, remember when we won that, but you see them applying those tools and techniques strategically in the next bargaining year and in the next bargaining year, and expanding what bargaining means. We've got a big challenge to think about what participative bargaining means in the UK, because we don't have that history in the US. But I'm really delighted that we're having that conversation, and I know that in the organising group in the STUC we want to really encourage that conversation to talk about transparent, participative, democratic bargaining, particularly if we're talking about sectoral bargaining, because that's got to be at the heart of it for it to be meaningful and have any power. So, yeah, absolutely. Anybody else got any questions? I mean, honestly, don't let me start. I could just sit and talk to you all day, Jane. But
Peter and Lorcan have got their hands up. I'm not sure who was first.
Brilliant. Lorcan, will we jump you in next, and then we'll take Peter Hunt, Lorcan Mullen, and then we'll take Peter Hunter after that. Thanks.
Thanks, Jennifer. And I mean, just the first thing to say, I want to echo something that Mike Williamson said in his contribution, just the effect your book, your various different books and your trainings, I'd say was life-changing for me as well. Just in such a, kind of politically bleak time, generally speaking, with so many different sort of multifaceted challenges facing people with our politics and our view of the world, to have that type of deep political seriousness that your work has, that's in your leadership, that's in your method. I mean, it's inspiring. It's something that we can all turn to, just to kind of go back to doing the work properly and doing it in a way that's not just marking time. That's something that actually puts money in people's pockets and actually builds enduring power. So, thank you for that. What you've brought to the Scottish trade union movement, and I'm not Scottish, I'm Irish, and I know you've brought that to the Irish trade union movement as well. So, I'd say that with a sense of sheepishness, because I'm one of these people who's like really, really enthusiastic about your ideas. Shove your books in people's faces. The discipline day to day to actually do that stuff properly, not always there, I think. So that's something that I think some of us struggle with sometimes, because it's quite resource intensive as well. But I think we're getting there, and that's exciting to see. Various different unions, including our own, invest serious resources into training and mainstreaming this way of doing the work, and I think that will give it real scale. So that's really exciting to see that. So I just one other point on the question on that. So the other thing that's really inspiring about that is the international dimension. So I don't know if there's been any precedent for that, basically, in the history of the movement worldwide, to have something like your training that brings people together from various different continents, bringing them together in a discussion about methods, and about how they're going to kind of meet the organising challenge and actually win in those various different. I don't think something like that has existed before. And again, that's just a sort of a bit of a beacon for us, that people are actually getting together and getting better at what they're doing. And I suppose there's a practical question I have on that. So I'm currently working with the biggest branch in our union, NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde. That's the biggest health service workers branch in the UK. Some say in Europe as well. I don't know if that's still true. And I was just wondering if you could recommend a particular health workers local in the States for us to build solidarity links with, just to try and keep a live conversation going about bargaining challenges, organising challenges, and about just trying to keep that work going. Because I think worker to worker, I think that'll be more powerful than sort of indirectly through organising staff as well. So that was just one specific question I had on that. And thanks again, Jane.
Yeah. Ethan's putting some important notes in the chat about how to get set up. And I think one thing we are doing is, again, like I said, we change it a little bit each time. We do a little bit of experiments, like every program, because we want to. So one is the tension of wanting to do more sector specific meetings, but then the extraordinary challenge of that we're doing them in 10 or 11 or 12 languages, and the sheer cost alone of the translation of the program is bonkers. But it really feels meaningful to be in a room with someone from Uganda who's struggling around a healthcare privatization fight, on the other hand, or with the nurses from Liberia who I would want to protect me in a hospital or if I had an accident, and I would not want to be in a fight with. They were so badass. That was like 2 courses ago, so I think we will increasingly try to figure out how to do a mix and a match. And there's also, Ethan and I have been working just baby steps with some of the global federations, including Public Service International, which is a newer one for us, to work with some of the global federations and actually help work with them, with our trainers, to actually help build open-minded, where you have the first core thing is you have to be open about who's coming, right? Because anyone can come. That's the principle to our program, is anyone with 10 and above have to be able to come. We don't turn people away. So I think we're getting there, basically, little by little, into how to do sector specific work. And then there's been a big call for a while. And I think there's so much to do in all of our countries right now, so blithering much, that's so dangerous. My hunch is we're going to stick more to scaling up fast as much as we can across the sectors for the next year or so, given the worldwide fascist kind of outbreak we're having, and worse with the climate crisis and stuff, and the housing crisis. So, but I think it's all part of the ambition of where we want to go. Anything that's working, we want to do. So we keep trying to figure out what's working, and then we go there. And then we learn more about something working, and then we go there. And that's part of why it's so fun to have like a flexible, dynamic team of people who are all just good organizers. Like, people don't get paid to do the work. Like, this is a bunch of organizers from around the world who really do the work, and we're really committed to it. And it's like, what's the number one criteria to work with Organising for Power as a volunteer trainer is you have to have done 10 years of organizing work. Like, we put a pretty high premium on it. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be able to give an example fast of every reason to do or not do something the way someone is talking about it. Just, if you can't throw down 10 years of experience in hard fights, it's going to be hard to be a great teacher, right? So that's fundamental to it. So anyway, we actually have that discussion, like, what's the number of years of people who need to be involved? So it's all very exciting. The Trainer Academy we did this winter was exciting, and developing more trainers is going to keep being exciting. But I think I think we have to let Ethan do a little shtick about what is upcoming, Jen.
Absolutely.
And then
let's bring
pop
Ethan
off of
in,
this.
and then we'll call a halt there, if that's all right, because I know that you've definitely got to be off of here by 7. So Ethan, how do you manage to build that machine? 9 languages, thousands and thousands of workers. How do you pull it off? What do people need to do to sign up?
Sign up.
Yeah, we pull it off with lots of spreadsheets and lots of translators and a decent amount of AI for automated translation in occasional cases. But So I've shared already in the chat. Everybody check out the chat. You can pop it open on your bottom bar if you don't already have it open. The links that you need. There's an about link, which will tell you more about the program, about the core fundamentals that Jane already outlined, and that some of the testimonials did a really great job. Mike went through some of them. Julie talked about them as well. There's also a registration link. It's a Google registration link. We're sorry, we're working on that. It's, you know, the master's tools and whatnot. We're talking about technology. If you do not have a Google ID or you do not want to use a Google ID, I've also shared a registration template. It's in Excel, and you can just send that to me. I've shared my personal email address. It's already been said, but there's no fee. What there is there is a commitment. Right? And the commitment is that you're bringing 10 or more folks. Jane would love for that number to be 20. That number, we had no number at the beginning. And then Jane, you know, demanded that it be raised. And we were all afraid. We come from these leftist and progressive milieus. And we're like, well, if we don't let everybody in and give them cake and cookies and coffee, they're not going to come. And she was like, no, we raise expectations. That is not the way that we're going to do this. She's been proven completely correct. We've had, when we say that we've had 35,000 plus people come through the program, we only count the people who've come through the program in groups of 10 or more. We don't count the individuals who come through earlier on. But so there is a commitment for all of you to come through in groups to attend the program seriously. We award graduation certificates for folks who've attended 5 of the 6 sessions. Which we treat as sort of informally the requirement for being able to really participate meaningfully in the program. Yeah, I mean, it's all there. You're going to find everything in the about link. You're going to find everything in the registration link. You can just send to me very simply the template if you prefer to do that. You can also write to me with any questions. It is a very pragmatic program. And it is also at the same time a beautiful program in your ability to connect with folks from, again, we talk about when we say that we've had folks from 110 countries, we only count the big groups. We only count our serious organizational commitments. If we extend outward to talk about research, it's like it's 130, 140, 150. It's hard to even keep count. So it's something where you can bring folks who don't have experience in this, as Jane said right at the beginning, where they can get in here and both be learning, but also be connecting with people from all over the world, and recognizing that the daily struggles that they are in are ones that are shared by folks from, you know, Scotland to Uganda to the United States to India and beyond. So there you have it. It takes place at 5 p.m. Scotland time. Other people might refer to that differently, but I'm going to call it Scotland time. On Tuesdays from the 7th of May to the 11th of June, right? So that's 6 sessions, 6 weeks. There's in-between work. There's homework. We call it campaign practice assignments. We have an entire structure set up to support the group leaders, to support the folks who are going to be leading the groups of 10, making sure that you're able to really effectively give the best possible experience to every single person that you bring along, because every single one of us counts in this struggle. We're at our time limit, so I'll yield my space there. That's all there is to say. You can write me with any questions that you have in terms of technical details.
I'm just gonna, one last thing, the best people who have gotten the most out of it are people who really think through, sometimes with Ethan's help, the best way to do organizational registration, actually. Like the UCU, somewhere in there, like the first year that they came, brought 25 people from every chapter and had a chapter leader. Like that was a seriously organized program. So they made a target of 25 per campus, appointed a campus leader, had them go recruit them, and came with like 500 people. who all had a program, and they registered separately with Ethan in an Excel spreadsheet. Like, they wanted to know who they were organizing and bringing to their program. If I'm an organizing director of a union, I want to know who I'm sending to an organizing program too. So there's all sorts of ways to do it besides just the Google form. And now I'm going to stop because I do have to go. But boy, was that fun and a pleasure. And I hope lots of Scots show up and change the world as you are.
Well, thank you so much, Jane. We're going to let you go quickly because we know you have to do that now, but I can't say, sister, what an absolute pleasure it's to have you in even a virtual room. Absolutely inspiring. And once again, to thank you on behalf of the Scottish Trade Union movement for all you've done to sharpen our tools and make us think and make us better and more effective. So thank you, and we really look forward to joining you in May. I know I'm going to be there with a gang, and I hope many of you will be. There's a couple of more questions we're going to answer in the chat, but I don't want to hold you back because I know that you need to go. So thanks so much.
Is that okay if I take off?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you got it. You're the Scots. You got it. Okay. Great seeing you. Great seeing you. See some of you soon, I hope. Okay.
Thanks so much to Jane, but I knew that she had to go, and I just wanted to ask her a couple of questions here. We've got Melissa saying, how do you find a group to join? Is it by workplace sector or by union branch? And I suppose our answer to you is whatever is suitable for you. Where are you organising, Melissa? And what group of people can you bring around that organising challenge or issue? So it's not defined by the organisation that hosts it. It's not defined by the STUC. It's defined by you as a collective. So you can register and bring your people around you, and that's absolutely fine. But if you are a union and you want to make a strategic difference, then there is an ability to contact Ethan directly and have that arrangement that he talked about that UCU did, where they, as an institution, said this is what we're going to do, and we're going to register together collectively, and then we're going to use these people to help champion the use of these tools and ideas in our union. So you can do that also. We've got a few more messages. Great, brilliant, just welcoming the contributions, and thanks for all the efforts. And I think we're going to close that off.
Melissa's got her hand up.
Sorry, Melissa.
Sorry, it was just so that to make sure that I understood. So I'm a member of Unison and in FE. So do they have a branch? Would I kind of contact the branch secretary and say, is anyone else interested? Or do I have to get 10 people? Because I don't know that I know 10 people who would join. You know what I mean?
Well, there's two alternatives there for you. One, contact your branch. Two, as a backup, I would contact the regional education officer of your union, because there might be another group of Unison workers that are doing it that you might be able to join in with. So I would say that's your two. And if anybody's stuck, I know that what the STUC have offered in the past is that if anybody's stuck and they don't have a collective and they want to join in, that we will help find them a home. So that's your three pieces of advice there, Melissa. We'll help you find a home anyway, but contact your branch, and number two, contact your regional education officer. Okie dokie. And EIS have put the hand out to say that they'd love to work with Unison FE folk because they're doing it. So that's a lovely offer. Dan, thank you for that. Great. We're going to finish this off and let people get back to their dinner and their wains. I know you've got a wee one that was sitting on your knee before you kicked off here, Ethan, and I saw a few in the pictures. So thanks so much for sharing your time with us again, and for all the work you do. It really is truly inspirational to be part of that international cohort, and by God, do we need that in these dark days, Ethan. You know, you get to be with wonderful, good people across the world, and we can all do with that these days. When we see the kind of bleak international outlook, let us build positive international comradeship and relations rather than be in despair because of what's going on in the world. So thanks for all the work you do in that. Thanks so much to my three contributors, to Jill and to Mike and to David. Thanks so much to the STUC team, Dave Moxham, and to Rachel, who has been working really hard to provide all the infrastructure to allow this to happen. And what a treat to have Jane back in the room and to have a chance to pay some tributes to her, which are long overdue. So I'll leave it there. See you all in May.
See you in May. Take care. Thank you very much, Jen. Thanks, everybody.